Tala, this idea of Tala as a temporal organization of music, this is quite unique to Indian music. The word Tala occurs in very ancient texts. It's one of a very ancient concept really, and we find it in Natya Shastra. And in the Natya Shastra, the word Sangeeta actually, it is used to refer to Geeta, Vadya and Nritta, that is song, instrument and dance. The Natya Shastra, if you remember, it's a treatise on theatre, and music, dance and instrument, they were all part of theatre. Now Tala comes into the picture because that is the principle because of which these three elements can come together. Unless there is such an ordering principle, there can be no coordination between the singer and the dancer and the instrumentalist. So this is the Tala is the external reference point. It's the reference point. It is the ordering principle. Now, to give another example, in Western classical music, you have the conductor who manages the orchestra. The orchestra will consist of violinists and cellists and a pianist and all kinds of instruments. The conductor, one of the main roles of the conductor is to set a tempo and maintain it. Now he or she is the external reference point for the music, for all the musicians, and they have to take their cue from the conductor gestures. Now of course Tala is much more than just a tempo. There is a cyclicity, a certain as I said, duration which repeats, which recurs. So in the Natya Shastra, the Tala is seen like this, that it is the factor, that Tala is the principle because of which these three elements can be organized, because of which they can come together. The Sangeeta Ratnakara, for instance, says, Talaha Tala Pratisthayam iti Geetam Vadyam Tatha Nrittam Yatas Tale Pratishthitam. So Geeta, Vadya and Nritta, they are based on Tala, that is, they are grounded in the Tala, and that is the base. Tala is, so the word Tala is seen as being derived from the word Tala. Tala is the base, as the anything upon which anything can be constructed. So that is the ground principle. Tala is the ground principle on which these three elements can come together. Tala actually has had a long and complex evolution, and we have different systems of Tala in India. We have the North Indian systems. In Khayal we have in Drupad. Tumri has another set of Talas. We have what are called Navasandhi Talas. We have a system of 108 Talas that are supposed to be very ancient. Then we, in current Carnatic music, we have the Suladi Sapta Tala, which is a very prominent Tala system that is used. And besides that, we have also the Chapu Talas. We will talk in detail about these. But a couple of features that are common to all these Tala systems. These are all various systems of Tala. Now, what is common to all these things is, all these Tala systems, is that they have the concept of Avartana, for instance. Avartana is a very fundamental concept. Avarta or Avartana means one cycle of the Tala. So Adi Tala, which is what we have been saying, is a cycle of 8 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This avartana, this is one avartana of Aditala. And as much as we have to maintain the discipline of pitch or of raga, we have to maintain the discipline of the avartana. And avartana cannot be trifled with. It has to be maintained at all costs. And you will see whenever a performer performs the tala, he or she will always stop only after returning to the first beat of the tala cycle. In fact, the word avartana derives from the word avritti. Avritti means returning, recurrence. We speak of so many avrittis of any mantra, for instance. So that is the act of repetition, that is avritti. And Aditalam is an avartana of 8 beats. You have other talas like Rupaka talam, which is a cycle of 6 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is Rupaka talam. You have tala like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is an avartana of 7 beats called Mishra Chapu talam. In Hindustani music, we have Teen tal, which is an avartana of 16 beats, or Ek tal, which is an avartana of 12 beats. So this concept of avartana is a very important fundamental concept that that all tala systems have. That is simply the number of beats in one cycle of the tala, and that recurs. This avartana keeps recurring. As the word itself means recurrence, returning. And in Carnatic music, the smallest avartana, the tala cycle with the smallest avartana is Tishra Ekam. We will talk more about it. It's a cycle of 3 beats. That is the smallest possible tala cycle, and the longest tala cycle is 29 beats. This would be Sankirana Jati Dhruva Talam. As I said, we will talk about all this, but there are other tala systems like the 108 tala system that I just referred to. It's a very ancient tala system. We have talas with avartanas up to 128 beats per cycle, and that is this is called a Simhanandana tala. Or you have another tala with a very odd number, Sharabhanandana tala, which is 79 beats per cycle. So whatever it is, the concept of avartana is very fundamental in all these systems of tala. Now, the other important concept is that of sama. Sam. The first beat of every tala cycle is called the sam or the samam, and that is also a very significant point aesthetically, technically. That has a very important role. In fact, if you watch a performance of Carnatic music or Hindustani music, the tala cycle will only end on the first. You come back, how many ever avartanas the performance has gone into the particular piece, it will come back, it will not stop anywhere in midway. It will have to come back to the first avartana, and only there it will have to come back to the first beat of the avartana. That is a sum, and that is where the piece will be ended. Now, another very important beat in the tala cycle, especially in Carnatic music, this is of great significance, and that is called the graha or the iduppu. This is the point where the composition starts. Now suppose you have an Adi Tala. Vatapi Ganapatam. Vatapi Ganapatim Bhajeham. So the Adi Talam starts with 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. The song, the composition also starts on the first beat. Vatapi Ganapatim Bhajeham. This is, so in this case the graha or the eduppu or where the composition begins is the sum itself, the samam, the first beat of the Tala cycle. So this is called sama eduppu. Now Adi Tala itself, let me take another composition which you have heard earlier in this course. Nada tanumanisham Shankaram Nada tanumanisham Shankaram Nada tanumanisham Shankaram Namami me manasa Shirasa Nada tanumanisham. Here 1 2 nada, it's not nada, it's not like that. 1 2 nada. So if each beat, if you divide it into 4, 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 nada anubhanishu. So this is called ara graha, the eduppu or the big commencement of the song composition is half into the first beat. So this is a particular kind of graha and this has to be maintained throughout. You can't tinker with it, you can't move it here and there. The composition's integrity in terms of the music and also in terms of the tala structure has to be maintained. Now another composition. Sarasi Rukhanana Sarasi Rukhanana Ramaya Sarasi Rukhanana Ramaya Sarasi Rukhanana Ramaya Sarasi Rukhanana Ramaya Samaya Mubro Chikana Sarasi Rukhanana Ramaya Samaya Mubro Chikana Sarasi Rukhanana. So here the eduppu is 1 2 3 4 1 2 Sarasi. That is half into the second beat of the tala. So one beat is gone, the second beat, half of that you pick up the composition. Sarasi Rukhanana Ramaya Sarasi Rukhanana. So these are different kinds of eduppus. You can even have an eduppu or the graha before the sama itself. Chede buddhi ganudha Chede buddhi ganudha Chede buddhi ganudha. This is another composition where the composition starts just before the sum. 1 2 Chede buddhi manudha Chede buddhi. Or in this composition ne nindu eda gudura Hari ne nindu eda gudura Hari ne So Harinendu. So Hari comes here before the sum. This is called, this is a different kind of eduppu. What is called an Atita eduppu. In fact, this concept of graha or eduppu of compositions is also a very ancient one. You have the Sangeeta Ratnakara, which says Samo atito anagatascha grahastalo tridhamata. That is, the graha or the eduppu can be either the sama itself, that is, it begins on the sum of the tala, or it can be a little after the samam. It can be half, or it can be 1, or it can be 1.5, or in which case it is called anagata graha, or it can be atita. It can be the graha, the commencement of this composition is just before the sama. So we have these three kinds of edupus, graha, and in Carnatic music this is a very, very significant point in the Tala cycle. When you take a composition, this is something that has to be at all costs maintained even during improvisation. When you improvise with a composition, there are aspects of improvisation where we use the composition itself as the anchor, and in that case also this graha has to be maintained at all costs, and that is in fact throws up some technical and aesthetic challenges, and how the performer acquits herself is what listeners watch, listeners enjoy. In a tala like Aditalam, the midpoint of the tala is also important in compositions. That is called the aradi, and normally the accent, the weight of the composition will fall there also. For instance, Nada Tanumanisham. So in some way the accent falls on that sham. Nada Tanumanisham. So that is the midpoint of the tala cycle. The midpoint of the tala cycle is the fifth beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Nada Tanumanisham Shankaram Nada, or Vatapi Ganapatim. So that's where the weight falls. Sarasi Ruhadana. Again the accent falls on the midpoint of the cycle. Some tala cycles, like as we will see just Rupakatalam, it cannot permit of that kind of an accent, because Rupakatalam is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A very well known composition in this is again Tyagaraja's Tulasi Dala Mulache Santoshamuga Pujintu. So the tala is like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tulasi Dala Mulache Santoshamuga Pujintu. Tulasi Dala Mulache Santoshamuga Pujintu. Tulasi Dala Mulache Santoshamuga. So the Rupakatala compositions have a very different structure. Raghuvira Ranadhira Rara Rajakumara Raghuvira Ranadhira Rara Rajakumara Raghuvira Ranadhira रणधीर राजा राजकुमार रघुवीर रणधीर राजा. This is another composition at a slower pace. This is Rupaka Tala. Another popular Tala that we often see in Carnatic music is Mishra Chapu. Mishra Chapu is a very interesting Tala and it lends itself wonderfully in improvisation also. Mishra Chapu is like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Rajamatangi Mamavameenakshi Rajamatangi Mamavameenakshi Rajamatangi Manikya Vallaki Pani Maduravani Varali Veni Mama Veenakshi. This is a composition of Muthuswami Dikshidhar. It's a very short composition. The next part of the composition is like this. You see how that the composition is spread over this Tala cycle. Soma Sundareshwara Sukha Smurti Rupini Soma Sundareshwara Sukha Smurti Rupini Shyame Shankari Digvijaya Pratapini Shyame Shankari Digvijaya Pratapini He Maratna Varana Dharini Shaguru Gogradaakarini He Maratna Varana Dharini Isha Guru Gogradaakarini Kamitartha Vitarana Dhorani Karunyamrita Paripurani Kama Krodadini Varini Kadamba Kanana Vikarini Mama Veenakshi Viraja Matangi Manikya Vallaki Pani Maduravani Varani Veni Mamava Meenakshi. Now I will just sing a couple of lines each of a few compositions, and you could try to see if you can make out whether it is. I'll only sing Adi Tala or Rupaka Tala or Mishra Chapu Tala. There are other talas, we will see about it later, but between these three I will just sing a few compositions and you can take it as as a small exercise to try to figure out what Tala it is. One way is to try to figure out how many beats are there between each repetition of the line. Nada sudarasam biladu nada sudarasam biladu nada sudarasam biladu narakritaya pranavana sudarasam biladu narakritaya pranavana sudarasam biladu. This is part of one composition. Ganamurte Shri Krishna Venu Ganamurte Shri Krishna Venu Gana Nola Tribhuvana Pala Payi Ganamurte Shri Krishna Venu Gana Lola Tribhuvana Pala Payi Gana Murti. Pankajalochana 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 Pahi Murantaka Pankajalochana Pahi Murantaka Pankajalochana. So these are three compositions that I have sung. Parts of them, of course, only the first part of the compositions have been sung, and they are in three different talas. You can just try to listen to them again and again and see if you can identify how many beats are there, and with that help it's an easy guess for you about what tala these compositions are in.